Right, well, I'm tired of politics and I just feel like playing some video games today, so I'm going to play Kerbal Space Program. This is a delightful little game in which you can shoot rockets into space with these cute little green guys. And there's lots of mods available, so you can change the game to really make it your own. So today I'm going to start a new game using the KSP Interstellar mod, which adds warp drive and all sorts of other fun things, with a modified technology progression. And so let's just go ahead and get started. Right, so for our first rocket, it's very simple. There's a couple of solid rocket boosters, science experiments, all tacked together with some parachutes and some fins for stability. And so with this rocket, we're going to go to space. We're going to reach the atmosphere's limit at 70 kilometers, but we're not actually going to be getting into orbit, because in order to get into orbit, you need to be able to miss the planet. You're going so fast. We're only going to be going up far enough that we can reach the end of the atmosphere, and then we'll just be falling right back down in a ballistic arc or a suborbital trajectory. So let's go ahead and do that. As you can see on the map here, we are starting to, our arc is starting to extend a bit here, and we're almost at the edge of the atmosphere at our height. And it is going further out into the ocean the faster we go. Of course, a ballistic trajectory is most optimal when it's at 45 degrees, so that's what we're aiming for to get the maximum distance. The top of our arc is now out of the atmosphere, so we're almost out of fuel. We'll probably reach around 100 kilometers before it cuts out. Alright, and with our engine cut out, we'll be reaching a total height of 111 kilometers, and we'll be heading out into the ocean pretty substantially here. So we'll just skip right up into the outer end here. Great, so we're now officially in space. But as you can see, even though we are in space, we are technically out of the atmosphere, it's still going to end up right back in the ocean again. And that's because we're lacking in the orbital insertion burn. So in this burn, all we've done is really raised our altitude up to a very high height, but without an orbital insertion burn, we won't be staying in space very long. So that will be our next project, is to do an orbital craft. So we'll just skip through the rest of this because it's kind of boring. Well, I mistimed the parachutes. Oops. Oh well. Alright, so we've got a slightly different rocket here. This one's a 3-stage design where the first 2 stages are these solid rocket boosters that'll actually get us up into space. And then after that, this last stage at the top here will fire to circularize our orbit. So it's basically a 2-stage operation, one being to get up into space, so out of the atmosphere, and then the second being to start going fast enough that we miss the planet as we start to fall down. So let's go ahead and do that. Now you'll notice first of all that I'm not going straight up. The reason for that being that if I go straight up, we'll just end up falling back down again. The second part of our operation is the most important, and that is to start going as fast as possible in this direction as we can. And that's the reason why we're going this way as well, is that the planet's already rotating in this direction, so it's giving us a bit of a boost in the first place. Alright, first stage is done. Separate those other boosters. And then we just have probably enough fuel to get us above the atmosphere at the peak of our orbit. Not quite. So it looks like our apoapsis is around 56 kilometers or so. So you can see that right here. And we are going to be falling back into the ocean if we don't do anything about that. Fortunately, though, we have a second rocket that we can use to solve that problem. Let's just wait until we get up closer to our apoapsis here. Alright, now that we're up here, let's separate these fins, start our last engine here, and start burning towards the horizon. Now you'll note here, I'm not actually burning up anymore because we don't need that much more height. We do need to raise our apoapsis out of the atmosphere, but at this point we mostly just need to go sideways in order that we can miss the planet as we fall back down. So you can see also that our trajectory is starting to move further and further away. Eventually, if we keep doing this, then the trajectory where we fall will actually miss the planet altogether, which means that we're then in orbit. And our apoapsis is almost at 70 kilometers, which is what it needs to be. And I'm just going to stop the engines right about there. And we're just going to coast until we get closer to the apoapsis. And then what we'll do is we'll burn when we get to the apoapsis so that our trajectory of falling will start to move out of the atmosphere. So we'll just zoom to that. All right, now that we're all the way up here, we're going to start burning so that we can circularize our orbit. Now you'll see back in the distance there's our launch pad. So at this point, we're now moving away from it so far and so fast that as we burn sideways, we're actually, from the perspective of our launch pad, burning kind of downwards. Which seems a little counterintuitive. When we're trying to go up, why would we burn down? But that's because we're burning, from our perspective, sideways. So it's parallel to the curve of the planet here, which causes our apoapsis and our periapsis to get further and further away the more that we do it. So I'm just going to do a gentle burn here because we don't need to go that much faster, that much quicker. But as you can see on the other side of the planet, our periapsis is starting to come upwards. And once it hits 70, that means that, there, we're now in orbit. So as you can see here, we're now going so fast that when we fall back down towards the planet, instead of falling back towards the planet, we actually end up missing the planet altogether. And so that's what the effect of orbit is we just continue to miss the planet over and over again as we continue to fall towards it. Now, from the perspective of our launch pad over here, if we look at it looks like we're actually going down now. But since the planet is curved, indeed, we are going to just miss the planet altogether. So this is what kind of tricks flat earthers into thinking that it's a scam, because if you look at this, you can see that we're now below the horizon. Looks like the rocket has now crashed back into the planet, but since the planet is round, it does continue to just move around and around and around. Now, since we don't really have all that much to do out here, we're just going to deorbit back on the other side of the planet, and we're going to try and bring our craft down back around where we started, just so it's easier to recover. So we'll just skip around to the apoapsis here. And what you really want to do is burn on the opposite side of the planet from where you want to come down. So I'm going to aim our craft in the opposite direction of where we're going. So you can see that in the ball here. The green circle with the X in it indicates the opposite direction from which direction we're going. So what I'll do is I'll just fire the engines in that direction, thus slowing us down. And as we slow down, you can see that our periapsis starts to drop. Orbital mechanics are a little bit unintuitive, so I'll do another video with a bit more detail about that after this one, but you can see that we're now dropping down below 40 kilometers, and that should be enough to drop us down into that part of the ocean right here. So now we basically just wait for the atmosphere to catch us and bring us down to where we want to go. Since we don't need this rocket engine anymore, we might as well just ditch that. And then we can just angle our craft in the direction of the flow so that our heat shield catches most of the atmosphere on the way down. Just hope that our antennae don't get ripped off by the force. And then we just wait. And we've now hit the part of the atmosphere where it starts to get a bit thicker, and given that we're going more than 2 kilometers per second, it's going to get pretty toasty, because we're running into a bunch of air molecules that are compressing and heating the outside of our craft. That's why we've got that big heat shield there. The nice thing about this is that it means that we don't actually need any rockets to slow ourselves down as we're coming down. All we have to do is just rely on the actual atmosphere itself to do most of that work. This is the most nail-biting part of space travel, where you're trying to get back into the atmosphere because it's very, very hot. And there's a lot of things that can go very, very wrong, and you're in this process. We've successfully gone through all the hot parts now, so that's good. Most of our craft is intact. We're a little bit undershooting the landing spot that we intended. I can never really get that straight, it seems, but we're going to come down right in the middle of this, I think this is the desert or something. But thankfully we've got some parachutes that can break our fall and will hopefully land in one piece. So we'll just skip over all the rest of this because it's rather boring. Et voila! We have returned.